Blessings and welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. We're in 2 Kings chapter 25, verse 22. Just one verse. Then we jump over to Jeremiah and we read chapter 39, verse 11 through chapter 40, verse 6, which is the cool story and takeaway for me. Then we're going to read the first three chapters in Lamentations. Or that was what we were to read before we got here today. So let's get started. The only verse we have in 2 Kings basically tells us that Nebuchadnezzar left this guy named Gedaliah, I guess is how you say it, in charge of Judah. There's no indication that I've seen so far that he is in the line of David at all, that he is continuing this rule of the line of King David as God promised. Not that this was a promise breaker or deal breaker, but just to show that because there's no longer a man of David sitting on the throne, that the kingdom is no longer God's kingdom. He's given it over to Babylon, sent the people off into exile, and from that point on, he's done with the nation of Judah until he brings them back. So it just goes to show that this king is not in the line. He's not part of God's plan, and it's different. Then we jump over into Jeremiah chapter 39, and chapter 39 and 40 give this, I think it's a really cool story, because you've got Jeremiah they leave him there in jail, or in the guardhouse as they call it, and the king flees with all his people. His family and his administration staff, they leave him in jail to rot. Well, when the Babylonians come in and take over, somehow King Nebuchadnezzar knows who Jeremiah is. He's heard about him. And he tells Nebuzaradan, I'll just call him Nebdan, to go find him and look after him. So this Nebdan guy, this king, or this captain of the guards, we'll call him the captain. The captain goes and he finds Jeremiah and he releases him. Then he tells Jeremiah, he says, look, your people have sinned against God, and that's why God destroyed the city. And it's almost, when you're reading this, it's almost like he doesn't realize who Jeremiah is, and he's filling Jeremiah in on the fact that the Israelites have rebelled against God, and God has sent the Babylonians to do this. And then as we get down a little bit further, he and Jeremiah apparently learn who the other one is, and he seems to have this real affection for Jeremiah, and he even tells him, he says, look, if you want to come back to Babylon with me, I'll take care of you. I'll find you a place to live, I'll feed you, whatever, I'll take care of you. But if you don't, the whole land is before you. You can do whatever you want. You're not a prisoner anymore. And so we see this Israelite and then the enemy of the Israelites. And the only thing they have in common is God. But that's all they need, because as soon as they find that connection, they are like brothers. The captain says, man, I'll take you home into my house and I will take care of you for the rest of your life. That's a pretty big commitment to make, and it's just really cool. Jeremiah decides to stay, and so he's staying in Jerusalem and Judah. Not in Jerusalem because the walls are torn down, the houses and the temple, everything is burned. I mean, it is ruined. This whole city is ruined, which leads into us reading the first three verses of Lamentations, because Lamentations is a book written by Jeremiah, and it just talks about how it's a lament. It's a funeral dirge is what they called it, just pouring out your grief and your soul and your sadness over what has happened. And so that's what we read in Jeremiah 1 through 3, and we'll finish up tomorrow in Jeremiah chapters 4 and 5. Overall, a really cool read today. I love that relationship that was built, or that we got to observe. But tomorrow we're going to read Lamentations 4 and 5. And we're also going to read Obadiah, which I mentioned a couple of days ago when we were talking about God was prophesying through Jeremiah some of the destruction that was going to fall on the Moabites and the Edomites. So Obadiah's going to speak to that. So tomorrow will be a good read. Read ahead. I'll see you back here, and we'll see if we can find a law enforcement takeaway. Until then, y'all be safe.